Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Your Age is Not Your Cage with Carla Allen. If you are joining me on YouTube, I'm back on video. I haven't done a video in a little while, but I have a special guest today and it deserves a video. My little solos I do a lot of times, I just do audio. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. If you're listening on any of the other podcast platforms, you can jump over to YouTube if you rather watch some video. But let me tell you about who I have on today. Her name is Jen Yundt Coles, and she is a SIBO expert. If you're not familiar with SIBO, it is a small intestinal disorder, digestive issue that she is going to explain more to you. If you've had gut health issues, you don't want to miss this episode. So let me tell you a little bit about her before we bring her on. She is an AFMC certified functional medicine and integrative health coach, and she is the creator of the Hydrogen Sulfide Solutions Program. She'll tell you more about that. Not only is she a SIBO survivor, she is also a highly trained, world-renowned expert in her field. Her passion is rooted in decades of long self-healing journey, and she loves to come alongside others and support them when you feel stuck, like you're in a revolving door of infection. She wants to come alongside you, guide you, help you, and get you through this, just like she got through it. So you're going to want to take notes for this one. If you're out walking, you can always come back to it, but take notes, soak this in. She's got so much good information for you. So I want you to help me welcome Jen Yundt Coles to the podcast. Welcome, Jen, to the podcast. We're so glad that you're here.
Hey there, Carla. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, I am too. And I already played you up in the intro. So I know the listeners are excited to hear, but let's start with the first thing I want to talk about is just you and your health journey and kind of what led you into doing this type of work and the things that you're doing.
Yeah, so like many of us in the functional medicine field, we ended up here because of a personal experience or health journey that we were struggling with, and I'm no different in that case. But mine lasted for decades, pretty much my whole life. I was always the constipated kid, the little girl in the nurse's office asking for the heating pad, and just kind of grew up that way, just really uncomfortable and unpredictable bowels, and really affected my confidence, my willingness to kind of do things that seemed a little spontaneous, because I didn't know if there was going to be a bathroom nearby and all of that. So it really affected kind of who I was, my personality in general, I think. And, continued on into college and my marriage. I had two babies back to back, which I think sent me kind of into a spiral as far as my health went. And, was in a car accident and all sorts of things, because life happens. And that's what led me actually to learning more about Chinese medicine and alternative medicine in general, to manage some of my body pain and things like that. And going through my journey, I mean, I could spend all day just talking about what my health journey has looked like, right? But I'm kind of putting it in a nutshell here. But basically, once I got into my 30s, hormones were shifting and all of that kind of fun stuff. And, being the overachiever mom who was constantly people pleasing and doing everything for everyone else and leaving myself out of that equation, my health really suffered. And eventually I ended up with broken heart syndrome because of the stress on my body of everything that I was trying to do, being an entrepreneur, being a mom, being a wife, moving several times, all the things that life throws at us, right? But I wasn't managing it well, and it was taking its toll for sure. And after I had that experience, that was kind of a wake up call for me, like, wow, I'm pretty young and I just had a heart attack because of the stress, right? And at that time, I was also still having digestive issues. I went from chronic constipation for decades and switched to chronic diarrhea for several years. And I became really nutrient depleted, laying in bed, feeling hopeless, couldn't go to my kids' soccer games and all that kind of stuff that I really wanted to do. And that led me to my first taste of functional medicine. And I went to a new practitioner and she's like, hey, have you ever heard of SIBO? Let's test you for that. And I had never heard of it, right? And that's where the SIBO journey kind of began for me. And I ended up going to health coaching school. I think you're also a fellow IIN student,
Yeah,
correct?
I
Yeah.
am. Yeah.
And I ended up health coaching. So I love doing that. I was helping friends and family at first, and then started getting some clients. And then, slowly I started seeing that like more and more gut health type people were coming to me. And I was going down my own rabbit hole and research, Dr. Google overwhelm because I was trying to figure out how to cure and, how to overcome my own SIBO that was still very elusive to my own GI doctors and my other practitioners. Even my functional medicine practitioner threw up her hands and was like, "Hey, here's some antidepressants. I don't know how to help you."
Mhm.
Right? And I think that's probably a familiar story for uh, many of those in your audience because lots of times doctors don't know how to help us. They're not looking at the whole person. They're not looking at our environment and all the interactions and relationships that we have. They're only looking at one body part and they're not getting the whole picture. So that's kind of where I was. So as I was health coaching, I decided, you know what? I want some more science and I want more research because that's kind of how my brain works. And so I decided to put myself through functional medicine school. And it was the most amazing transformational experience that I've ever had, both for my career, but also for my personal life. And that's when I finally was able to crack the code after many years of research and experimentation on myself, but also some willing participants in my practice. And so then finally I was able to figure it out, overcoming something like SIBO or other chronic, whether it's digestive issues or chronic health issues, it really needs to be a holistic approach. And so that's kind of how I have ended up here. Word got out that I was helping my clients with SIBO. And so I decided to rebrand as the SIBO coach. So here I am.
I love that. And gosh, so many things came up in my mind while you were talking. But I mean, you lived with this for years, like many years before you actually finally started getting some answers.
Yes, many, many years
Yeah.
and thousands of dollars and lots of tears and pain and all the things. And so I'm so glad to be on the other side of that. And I think that's really what my drive is now to help people understand that there's still some hope there, even when they feel like there's no hope. And that, there is going to be an answer. And in my opinion, these sort of things are always, I would say 99% of the time overcomable, right? And
Mhm.
so keeping that faith and hope alive.
Yeah. Well, and I know through the functional medicine, the core thing is getting to the root cause. And I think so many times, like you said, we go to the doctors, we do these things, and they're like, I'm sorry, your tests look fine, all this looks fine, and I was just talking to someone this morning that's dealing with the same type thing, like, but what is causing this? For them, it was vertigo. And the
Yeah.
same with me. I just got some thyroid results back that are on the low side, and I've had that for a while, but I'm like, okay, but I want to know why I'm there. There's something that's causing me to be there versus us just putting more of I'm on the armor thyroid. But it's really had me researching and looking again because I'm like, I know that there's something causing this and I can overcome. And that's what I think about with you. And just going for so long, kind of with not knowing what's going on until you got to the root. And I love that you went and you went and studied functional medicine for that. That is something that has been in the back of my head for a long time. I mean, I am just a continual learner. I don't care how old I am. I
Oh
just
yeah.
I love learning. But so before we get too off track and deep in, I mean, share what SIBO is, because there might be some people listening going, I don't even know what in the world they're talking about. So share what it is, kind of what root causes, symptoms, just give, your overview of that so everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure. So SIBO, SIBO, stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's a mouthful. And it's becoming more and more understood. But you still may be able to go to your doctor and they say, I don't know what that is. Even a GI doctor may be in the dark still about SIBO. So it's really important to educate yourself. Studies vary on this, but many of them are saying at this point that about 60 to 80% of IBS, which is very common, a lot of people know about IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is kind of a vague catch-all of like just symptoms that they don't know how to explain, right? That SIBO is actually at the root of that. So that's a good percentage of folks who may actually have SIBO and don't realize it, right? Or who aren't getting the information that they need from their doctors. So it is an overgrowth in the small intestines. So let's geek out a little bit, right? So our small intestines are mostly like what I like to call the secretary or the sorter. It's like figuring out what nutrients you want and absorbing and assimilating all of that stuff into your body. Whereas the large colon is really where the fermentation and the development of the stool is happening, and you're going to excrete all those toxins and waste that you don't need from the day. And it's normal to have bacteria in the large colon, right? That's where you want it. When you think about probiotics and good gut bugs, that's kind of what you're talking about. But there can be a variety of reasons why now you're having an overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestines, which is typically a little more on the sterile side and doesn't have a lot of bacteria. And so when that happens, you can end up with things like bloating after meals. Usually that looks like an hour or an hour and a half after you've eaten a meal. If you're feeling that like little pregnant belly bloating underneath the navel area, that's a sign, right? That could be a symptom. Um, like I said, the bloating, but also gas, unpredictable bowels. You could be constipated, you could have diarrhea, or you could have both. But above and beyond all of that, and this is one thing I like to educate my clients on, is that SIBO doesn't even have to look like a digestive symptom, which is shocking to a lot of people. I might have someone come to me in my practice who has chronic migraines and we can't figure out why. Well, it's rooted in the gut and it was actually a SIBO. It was a bacterial overgrowth causing that migraine. Or body pain syndromes like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and things like that. Unexplained rashes or a twitch in your eye, little things like that could be rooted in the gut. And so that's kind of what I do. I play detective for folks and try to, rule in or rule out SIBO. The way we do that is by testing. So there's a breath test that you can get. You're blowing into these little balloons and it's measuring how much gas is being released from the bacteria that's fermenting in your small intestine. Now, I don't think that any test at this point is 100% accurate, right? It's always just a capture in time. So there are possibilities for false positives and negatives. But in my practice, what I like to do is use that test as one data point, and I'm using that in context with what I see that's presenting in front of me. What symptoms does this person have? What kind of lifestyle are they living? What's going on in their relationships? All of these sorts of things kind of go together to help me kind of formulate a plan to get them over the hump and unstuck from having something like SIBO or any other chronic digestive issue for that matter. And so, like I said, there are many root causes, or maybe I didn't talk about root causes yet, many root causes for SIBO. And speaking of thyroid, hypothyroid dynamics can be a cause. Certainly in functional medicine, we like to say if there's a sluggish thyroid, there can be a sluggish anything else. That could be energy production, that could be sex hormone production, that could be digestion and elimination, right? So oftentimes, if I see that someone's chronically constipated, I might say, hey, let's check out and make sure that your thyroid is working optimally, right? And to your point, Carla, countless numbers of women in this country right now are not getting the help they need with their thyroid because in conventional medicine, there's kind of this wide range considered normal for the reference range. And you can be within that range, but be suboptimally low or suboptimally high and experiencing symptoms. But unless you're flagged high or low on a lab test, you're not really going to get the guidance and assistance that you need from your doctor. And the same kind of goes with digestive health and things like SIBO, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, a few other root causes of SIBO are things like eating foods that you're chronically intolerant of that you don't realize, if you have a food sensitivity and it's causing inflammation. A round of antibiotics can certainly do it. Chronic stress is a big one that I see in my practice because I see lots of women who are trying to, run businesses or have corporate jobs and also dealing with families and all of that kind of stuff, way overstressed and taxed and not taking care of themselves. Um, Even things like NSAIDs, like over-the-counter ibuprofen, taking that for like maybe you sprained your ankle because you went on a hike or something and you've been taking that for a couple of weeks, that can totally disrupt your microbiome and lead to something like SIBO. So there are many, many that I haven't even mentioned, but many, many root causes of something like this. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's where the challenge comes in. I'm probably not the only one that thinks this, is because so many symptoms mimic, if you go into Google and look it up, it can be a million things. And I think that's where it gets so difficult to kind of know what to do and what direction to go, because it could be, you'll read symptoms for some other illness and it's all the same type symptoms, and how do you, when you have things like that, narrow it down, narrow the focus down more. And I'm sure there's other things that you do. I would love to hear what helps you narrow that down a little bit too, because you mentioned a few things where I'm like, that's me, that's me, that's me.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean the same, like I said, with the thyroid, and for years my number was in the normal range, but I knew things were off. And then it
Mhm.
started running to the lower range, and then it started hitting the red that finally, indicated something. But that's what I tell so many of my clients and people I know. I'm just like, you have to advocate for yourself. And if you're convinced there's something going on, push for more.
Yes, 100%. I always say that to my clients. I even say that to people who come to me and I say, even if we work together or not, my number one piece of advice is going to be your own best advocate and keep asking questions. You know your body best, above and beyond what anything or anyone else is going to say to you about your body, right? And when we have that, pun intended here, gut feeling that something is awry, we should definitely follow that. So, some of the things to answer your question, when someone comes to me, I'm looking at their health history, right? Have they had a history of food poisoning, which is also a root cause of SIBO? Have they traveled abroad? Did they have a possible exposure to, a parasite or something like that, right? Have they had surgery? I'm kind of trying to weed out, is their body in a place where they were set up for something that's, a potential overgrowth like this? So I'm asking more questions and things like that. I'm also asking them, so when you have your dinner, and you had some broccoli or cauliflower or, whatever, some sort of cruciferous vegetable, or have you reacted to garlic and onion recently? You find that when you eat those foods, you get more bloated. Those are clues because those are considered what we call FODMAP foods, and those are highly fermentable. And especially for folks who have SIBO, it's like a buffet and a feast for those bacteria,
Yeah.
and they load those types of foods. So increase in symptoms when that happens. If someone is complaining about that very common bloating about an hour or an hour and a half after eating, that's a really big red flag for me. That's a very typical common symptom. Not for everybody, like I said, but for me, yes, definitely, that's a clue. Having things like if they're a grazer, if they're someone who's eating, every hour or two at home and snacking and things like that, that's a sign, and they're experiencing bloating, that's a sign that there may be SIBO because their body doesn't have the opportunity to have a cleansing wave and sweep out the intestines from that extra food fodder that's now fermenting and being fed on by bacteria. So there are lots of things that I can ask and get clues about. Also, if someone says to me, I had a surgery or I had a oral infection and I had to take antibiotics, um, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, now I have this constant bloating after I eat that I never had before. that's going to be a sign. I'm also seeing things like post-COVID now, because we know that the COVID virus, can affect our epithelial cells, that's a mouthful, in the intestinal tract and cause inflammation and things like leaky gut. So now maybe someone's saying, well, I'm bloated all the time, or now I feel like I'm reacting to everything I eat. So that's a clue that now there may be some leaky gut as a downstream effect of having SIBO and inflammation in the intestinal tract. So I think I answered your question there, but if I didn't, ask me again.
Well, and it makes me think about how many people think that it's just normal after you eat to burp and to feel bloated and have gas. They think that's like a normal process of eating. And I know when I grew up, I was diagnosed with IBS early, and my mom has dealt with the same things, and my brother. I mean, it's this, but it was this. I got to be like, does everyone just have IBS? Because I kept hearing that diagnosis. But for me, like you, I went years of just this roller coaster of constipation for it could be for weeks, and then just the diarrhea. And I mean, I thought it was a normal way to live. And there were a couple times I wanted to go to the hospital. I was in so much pain, but I think so many times we think these small, what may be small bloating, belching, whatever, are normal, and they're not. They're signals. They're symptoms of, hey, something's going on here. And when you were talking about all the different things that could signal it, traveling out of the country, surgery, all those things are all things I have done in the last, year or so. And I really have been questioning my gut health, which is why I have looked into it more, which is why I found you and have been trying to learn even more than I already did on gut health, because I do feel like it's so much more prevalent out there than anyone realizes.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point too, I've found that especially in the phase of life that we're in, a little bit older and more mature and having new experiences, right? And possibly having surgeries and things now as we get older. I find that it's a common root cause actually now for things like autoimmunity. And this dynamic happens because the bacterial overgrowth in the intestinal tract is causing inflammation and wear and tear on that intestinal lining and impairing those tight junctions, right? We want to have nice tight junctions in our intestinal tract, but if they get impaired or damaged in any way, undigested food particles from our foods that we're eating on a daily basis are getting through into our bloodstream and then creating an alert system to our immune system, right? It's saying, oh my gosh, it's a foreign invader. This is a crazy protein. We don't know what this is. And then it goes on attack, which can then lead to things like autoimmunity and other dynamics like that. Our body chooses at that point which body part it wants to attack. Maybe it's thyroid, maybe it's rheumatoid arthritis, it could be all kinds of things. And so I see that it's quite common in my practice where I don't know, it's like women from their 40s until their 70s, right? That I see this kind of developing and this kind of pattern that happens. And it's all really rooted in the gut. And to your point, also, I would say that many of us are so busy, right? In our younger lives. And then when we get a little bit older, or maybe our kids are moving out, we start having more time to spend on ourselves and really take stock of like what's going on in our own body finally to take care of ourselves. And we think, oh, yeah. I hear about everyone being bloated after they eat. It's very common, but guess what? It's not normal.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a healthy way to live. And that can lead to all these other downstream things like nutrient depletion and inflammation in the body and, rapid aging and body pain syndromes, like I was saying. And so it's really important to kind of think about how we can get back to taking care of ourselves. What kind of foods are we eating? Are we eating whole foods? Are we doing the things that we know that are right? Like you've had podcasts on this, going on walks and drinking enough water. I mean, they're all super simple, but that sets us up for long-term health and better even digestive health, right? And so I like kind of where you where you point out some of those very simple things, but they're very, very important and they get overlooked by many of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they do. So tell me about like the effects that SIBO has, like on your other than just the obvious, the physical health, but like the mental, the emotional. Because I know even just not feeling good, not having a health issue, having something, it really can wear on you and make you depressed and really take a
Yeah.
toll on your mental and emotional state. So yeah, kind of talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up because sometimes I'll talk about this in my social posts and things because SIBO doesn't always have to just look like, oh, I feel bloated after meals, because it often looks like anxiety. Because remember, our gut is informing our brain on a constant basis of what is happening in our world. And so if it's dysregulated for any reason, it's sending that message to our brain, oh, hey, you're in danger. So it's, raising your cortisol levels and dysregulating your metabolic. Oh, I'm tongue tied. I'm tongue tied. Metabolic dysfunction, like your blood sugar starts going out of whack, and that can create anxiety and, dysregulation in your mood balance and all of that. It can certainly affect your sleep, especially if you're someone who's in pain or if you're getting up at night because you have diarrhea or you're so bloated you can't fall asleep. And if we aren't sleeping, oh my gosh, everything else goes awry, right? You can't think straight, you can't concentrate, um, and do all the things that are required of you on a daily basis. It affects energy production because you're likely not getting those really good nutrients you need to provide energy in the cell, right? And ATP production and all of that. So definitely has effect on energy, mood. I do see depression. People feel so hopeless sometimes if they're just laying in bed. They feel like they can't eat anything. They don't want to be social because they have embarrassing gas, right? Or they don't know where the bathroom's going to be, so they don't want to leave their house. I know for me, there was a period of time, like I was mentioning, I didn't go to my kids' travel soccer games because I didn't want to be in the car for an hour and a half and then not know if there was going to be a porta potty on the field, right?
Yeah.
Or I've been on the way to the airport and had to speed into a fast food restaurant because I was going to have diarrhea all over myself in the car. Like, how embarrassing and debilitating, right? And so that really takes a toll on people's mental health for sure. And also, I would just say, kind of like what we were talking about before, when you don't feel seen or heard by your doctor,
Yeah.
or even if your spouse or someone in your family just thinks it's all in your head, um, that is just soul crushing sometimes because in your body that something is not right, but you just don't know how to fix it. And no one else seems to care to help you to fix it. That is just, yeah, that's so isolating and lonely feeling. And that in itself can be a cause for risk for other things happening in the body, like heart conditions
Mhm.
and dementia and other things like that. When you feel lonely, loneliness by itself is a huge risk for health conditions. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like some women just were like, oh my gosh, it's just fine. I'm just always bloated. It's whatever. It's my new normal. I just want people to rebel against that idea because I know that there is something better on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to live like that. And living like that for a period of time, yeah, you might be able to skate through. But once you get a little older, and that's been going on for decades, we're talking about serious health issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we skate through a little easier, like you were saying, when we're younger, because our focus is on other things, whether it's kids, career. I mean, we're not focused on ourselves. And I thought that was such a good point that you brought up earlier about then all of a sudden, we're kind of left maybe to ourselves, and all of a sudden we're like, wow, I don't really feel good. And start recognizing things going on in your body. And a lot of times by then, we've done damage in other areas. And then we're
Mhm.
dealing with more than one thing, and we're aging, and it just all compiles on top of each other, which is why it's so important to know your body and recognize the symptoms. And when something hurts, something doesn't feel good, something's out of the norm, that is your body trying to say, hey, wake up over
Yeah.
here. I need some attention.
Yeah.
And I do believe, I mean, gut health is just like core to so many different things that I don't think people correlate, go hand in hand. And like you talked about with the mental health and even just with loneliness, all the things that are incorporated into this, I don't think are talked about enough out there in bigger circles, other than those of us that are really trying to learn about it. And that's why I just so appreciate what you do. And so I want to ask then, kind of going from there, like you have a client and you asked all the questions, all the things about trying to determine if this is SIBO. What's next for them? Maybe what other kind of tests are there? Labs? Are there different things that are done? And then, I mean, what does it look like that for that person that is going through that journey of trying to determine if this is SIBO, and then what are their next steps? And I know you also, I have to look here, you created the Hydrogen Sulfide Solutions Program. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I got that name right. I want you to talk about that too. And I'm sure that might incorporate into all this.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's such a good question. So, it's really interesting. So at this point, when people come to me, they usually have a stack of paperwork, of lab work that they've had done with a bazillion other doctors.
Right.
And they come to me and say, Jen, this is what I have.
Yeah.
But I also order labs when it's appropriate. I try not to over order labs. I'm kind of conscious of how much the stuff kind of costs for people as someone who has spent tens of thousands of dollars on her own
Yeah.
journey, right? But so SIBO breath testing is probably at the top of the list, right? Again, this is kind of a quick, affordable thing. There is a prep that you have to do beforehand. You have to do like a special diet and fast overnight, but it's pretty simple. And that will give me clues about what's going on in the small intestine. It's whatever gas you're aspiring. Is that the right word?
Yeah,
It's totally.
and let me ask you before you move forward
Yeah.
from that, is that something that people can order and do on their own? Does it have to come from a specialist? What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So there are some lab portals online that people can order things on their own, but I would kind of caution against that because
Yeah,
sometimes the data just comes back, but you don't have the real information or the ability or the training to be able to read between the lines of what's actually happening on that graph, right? So that's why it's important to find a practitioner who knows how to read those.
okay.
Um, there are some SIBO breath tests. There's one called Trio Smart that does require a doctor's prescription. In my practice, I'm not a physician. I'm a functional medicine health coach, but I do have access to ordering things, and I order the 3-hour lactulose breath test. Now, I will say, just kind of as a tangent here, there's a lot of debate in the SIBO world among practitioners at this point about which test is best, but I continue to find that the 3-hour lactulose breath test is the most accurate. And again, I'm pairing that with the symptoms that I see from my clients. So it's not just one thing, it's all the things together, right?
Okay. Yeah.
In addition to something like that, I will often run a stool test. So I like Genova GIFX. I like the GI map. These are comprehensive stool tests that give you data about what's going on in the large bowel. Okay, so this isn't quote unquote giving you a diagnosis for SIBO, but it can give you clues about what sort of bacteria are present in the large bowel that may be migrating up into the small bowel. And oftentimes I will see a correlation between the SIBO breath test and the stool test and see some similar bacteria or patterns there. So it's just more information. On a comprehensive stool test, you can also get information about whether or not you have H. pylori, which is an overgrowth in the stomach. And I'll just say really quickly while it's on my mind, as we age, we naturally start to have lower levels of stomach acid,
Mhm.
right? And H. pylori is an overgrowth of bacteria in the stomach that also impairs our ability to produce stomach acid. And so remember, we have to have really good stomach acid. That works as our first defense against bacteria. Like, say, if you're eating a food out at a buffet or something, or in a different country and eating food that you don't normally eat, That's your first defense. So you want to have really robust stomach acid inside the stomach, nowhere else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then downstream from that, it's sending a signal for you to create bile, and have that squished out from the gallbladder. Many women our age now are having their gallbladders taken out, which is a whole nother conversation we can have another day. But bile from in the gallbladder is acting as an antimicrobial. So it's our body's natural defense against microbial overgrowth in the small intestine. So if we have that impaired, that can also be a root cause for SIBO. And then the last thing, of course, is digestive enzymes. We need that to break down our food. If we're leaving large chunks of food in the small intestines, that's fodder for bacteria to feed on. So now let me go back to what I was saying.
I love all that, though. I'm glad you shared
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so a lot of that information can be found on a stool test, information about what your enzymes are doing, and things like that. So a stool test can also show a comprehensive stool test, by the way, not just the regular one that you get from your conventional GI. It's very, I don't know, vague and
Yeah.
like limited in what they test. Um, it can give you information on your inflammatory status, and whether or not there is some low-grade bleeding that you didn't know about, or what is your immune status in the intestinal tract. Very important information, especially for overcoming something like SIBO. So the SIBO breath test and the GI map are two very common things we'll run. Sometimes if we've kind of gone through the journey a little bit and we've tried to address SIBO and we're still having some issues, or the person is still reacting to certain foods, we might run like a food intolerance test just to give us more clues. I don't usually run those in the beginning because most people have leaky gut. So when you take one of those food intolerance tests, everything comes back red and the person freaks out because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't eat anything. Well, that's not helpful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we usually do that later. But you can get so much information from a regular blood draw, the blood draw that your doctor is ordering every year, for your annual checkup. On a CBC or a CMP, there are clues in there of whether or not you have a simmering infection. You're looking at your white blood cell differential. That can give you information of whether there's possible parasites or inflammation, right? You can also look at things like different mineral levels, like your zinc or your magnesium or your iron levels, which is really important for pre and postmenopausal women because that number will shift. That could be a clue. If those are all low, maybe your stomach acid is suffering and it's suboptimal at that point because you're not breaking down those minerals. So there's lots of clues that you can get from regular blood work.
Yeah.
And of course, there are so many other things that I run in my practice, like mold testing, testing for mycotoxins or heavy metals and things that also play a role in chronic SIBO or other digestive issues because and even Candida, I forgot to mention that one, but they create a really advanced biofilm layer in the intestinal tract that make it really hard for us to overcome chronic conditions if we don't address that first.
Yeah.
So I could just go on. This is like the thing I talk about all day, but I hope that gives you kind of a sense of labs that I might run in my practice.
Yeah. Well, and I realize it's gonna, be based on individual people and
Yeah.
what you end up doing. And it made me think about when you're talking about that, what is the difference in like conventional medicine and what they're doing for things if someone says, well, I'm just going to go to my regular doctor versus going to like a functional integrative, which is what I see. I do have a functional integrative doctor who is just amazing. And
That's good.
so what differences are there in the conventional versus like what you do?
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting when you go to your regular doctor, they're kind of working under the umbrella of what's allowed as far as insurance and coding and all of that stuff. So it kind of ties their hands a little bit, paired with the fact that they may not be trained in something like trying to find out what's going on with chronic SIBO or some other digestive issue. So um, you might get lucky and they might know about SIBO and run a breath test for you, but a lot of them don't know about it. And so you would have to request it. And then there would be the question of whether or not they could read it or
Right.
interpret it for you. And like I was mentioning, I see this a lot in my practice. I saw it a lot in my personal my personal experience, but you go to your GI and you say, I'm constipated, right? So they say, well, take some laxatives, eat more take Metamucil or eat more fiber and then take a probiotic, right? This is not, what's the word? Customized, unique for your individual experience, right? This is kind of generic advice. And notably, having something like Metamucil when you have SIBO, that's a huge trigger for increased symptoms. I don't think
Mm.
a lot of GI doctors actually realize that.
Yeah. Wow.
And so if you got that advice from your doctor and you went home and you got some Metamucil and you were taking, over-the-counter laxatives and maybe you tried a probiotic and you felt worse, that's another sign that it could actually be SIBO. Same with diarrhea. I had a client yesterday who came to me, chronic diarrhea, going to the bathroom 10 times a day. Can you even imagine?
No.
I don't even know how you live a life when you're in the bathroom 10 times a
Well, and
day.
then you're so depleted of nutrients and everything
Yes.
else in your body and probably
Fatigue.
dehydrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. And just losing minerals like crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said he went to his GI and the advice was just take Imodium every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
So I just feel like that's so short-sighted.
I know. And I have to throw out there, if any of us have read the ingredients in a lot of these products, I think we would steer away from them too, because you're putting that in and your body's going, okay, I don't know what to do with all this other stuff that's in
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I kind of find that, I mean, obviously conventional medicine could be life-saving. And I think there is a space for them to kind of bridge together, like functional and conventional together. But I think in general, what I see in my practice and also from my personal experience, like I said, the conventional approach is quite short-sighted when it comes to chronic digestive issues. They may say, oh, well, let's get a colonoscopy. Well, the colonoscopy is not really going to show you if you have a bacterial overgrowth. It mostly just shows
Right.
you if you have a deformity or some kind of like cancer growing, right? Um,
And again, that's a very invasive procedure. It's going to
yes.
require anesthesia. It's going to require things that are put in your body that then your body is trying to deal with from
Yes.
having all
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Well, an interesting thing about colonoscopies is that, they give you this whole protocol to take or to drink beforehand to clear your system out. In that process, you're wiping out pretty much all of your good bacteria. Now, if you had bad bacteria, that may make you feel better because now you got rid of it.
Yeah.
But it's also, just completely dysregulating your microbiome and, wiping out some of that good stuff too. So it's not always the answer, in my opinion. Obviously, if you have some bleeding or something like that, you need to get it investigated, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think the other thing too is that when you go to your regular doctor, you get maybe 10 minutes to just
Yeah.
try to hurry and tell them all your symptoms, and then they
Hmm.
just want to write a prescription. And to their credit or defense or whatever, they are trained to look at a list of symptoms, match that list of symptoms to a pharmaceutical, and then write you the prescription. There's not a lot of follow-up. There's not a lot of preparation, like educating you on how to prepare your body to receive this medication and what to do afterwards. I can't tell you how many times I've seen folks come to me who have been on a medication from like 7 years ago because they never got the instruction that they were only supposed to take it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And they just keep getting it refilled.
Yeah.
And so having that individualized approach and having, regular follow-up and education, and so that you feel empowered to make your own decisions. I think that's the huge difference between conventional and something like functional or integrative. And I think the last thing I'll share is just as dynamic women, we have so many other things going on, right? It's hormones, it's relationships, it's kids leaving the house, it's starting a new career, it's getting back into exercise and starting a new hobby. All of these things play a role in our wellness. It's not just our small intestine.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. And I want to say to the difference in the functional and the conventional is, like I said, the guy that I go to, and it still happens when I go in there now, but the first time, all we did was sit down and talk, and I mean, we just talked
Yeah.
over everything going on with me. And then he looked over, anything that I had with me. But the same thing with my husband, and he was like, I have never been to an appointment like that in my life, where I actually got to just sit and explain, this is where I'm at, this is what's going on, this is, where I feel like I need help. And it's just a different approach, and they're not under the thumb of this certain amount of time. And I mean, of course, they can't spend hours with you.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
it's just different. So it's a different approach, and it's a different way of getting to the root causes, which, yeah, I absolutely love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference in my opinion. So conventional medicine is great at finding the band-aid for the symptom, right?
Hmm.
Here's this pill, right?
Yeah.
And that serves its purpose in a certain way. But in general, I think we're going to be better off when we do find that root cause, when we ask more questions, when I'm putting my detective hat on to help you figure out, oh, okay, so remember like 4 years ago when this happened, and then a year later this happened, right?
Yeah.
And really kind of getting to know the person that's sitting in front of you helps you help them, but it also helps your client understand, or your patient understand, one, that they're not alone, two, that they are being seen and heard, and three, that there's some hope because someone is in
Yeah.
their corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. So if I have a listener that's listening to this and going, I can so relate to this. This sounds like me. And even going to where you talked about even migraines, because I don't think a lot of people connect that. And
Mhm.
I know so many people that suffer with migraines. And so I have a listener that is just saying, okay, I have some of this. What are my first next steps? What do I do?
Yeah, so, with no strings attached, I actually have a survey on my website. So it's a little questionnaire, and you'd be surprised how many things are not digestive related. So that might give you first steps, or, a first idea of like, okay, actually, this might be a possibility for me. So then I
Okay.
can take the next steps,
Is
right?
that
Whether
something
that's,
I can link in the show notes?
oh yeah,
Okay.
I can do that
Okay.
too. Yeah, it's on
Okay.
my
Awesome.
website.
Okay.
Yeah, I have several free resources on there. I love to help people try to figure things out, right?
Well, and I know that you have I was looking to see what it's the free peak performance gut health guide. That
Yeah,
was
so
something
that's my
that I
newest
wanted to
guide.
include. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go back really quickly and answer your
Do.
question about the
Yeah,
hydrogen
please.
sulfide program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So within SIBO, within the realm of SIBO, right now there are three categories, right? There's hydrogen dominant, methane dominant, and hydrogen sulfide dominant. At any given time, you can have all three, just one or two, whatever, right? It could be a soup of things. And so hydrogen sulfide is actually the lesser known type. And in the past, it was more difficult to overcome, right? And this looks like sulfury symptoms like uh, gas and bloating that smells like rotten eggs. It's like very debilitating, and it's quite toxic to your nervous system to have hydrogen sulfide in your body,
Mm,
and all sorts of things. So anyway, that's the type that I ended up with at the last point. I went through all three, and that was the one that I ended up with at the end. And that was the one that no one knew how to help me with. And so that's really where I dove in and studied the science and practice on myself, and also some clients that were coming to me, and developed this whole program. It's very comprehensive. And actually, interestingly, a couple of years ago, there's an international panel of SIBO doctors from all over the world, some famous names that SIBO warriors probably know about because they follow them on social media. And some of them have their own product lines and podcasts and all of this stuff. But they decided to come together and create this panel together and invited me. I'm the only health coach there. And they said, "Hey, Jen, we heard you're doing something different. Hydrogen sulfide is so tricky. Please come and be on our panel." So we meet regularly. We share cases. We share ideas. We've had many guests on our forum as well, talking to them and asking them questions about their testing mechanisms and all sorts of things. So it's a great opportunity. But it's really where I decided that, wow, I'm actually doing something a little different than these doctors. And so I want to create something that will be helpful for people, because I feel like there was a little bit of a void online and in the support groups and all of that. And I felt like it would be beneficial to more people because, obviously I can only take so many clients in my practice, but I
Right.
figured this would be a better way to help more people. So to your other comment? No, I don't remember what it was.
About
Oh, I
if,
think it was about the guide. Yeah,
yeah, the guide, yeah. And then
yeah.
just if I'm a listener, what would you suggest doing first?
Yeah, so like I
Other
said,
than
I was
calling you.
right. Yeah, call me.
Yeah.
Like I said, you could go to my website and get the quiz. So I would start there. That's really good information. There's also a link on there that tells you how to get a breath test if you can't get one from your doctor. So it's a good resource just to
Okay.
start, right? Of course, you can always contact my practice, and we can have like a consultation. But there's also a free guide on there called the Peak Performance Guide. And this is a newer guide that I created. It says on there that it's specifically for hydrogen sulfide because I made it in tangent with my program, but it can be for anyone who's having chronic digestive issues or any sort of chronic health issue. Actually, it's going to help you elevate and start thinking outside of the box of the typical things that we're always told to do. And so I feel like that's a really good place for people to start as well. Plus, it's free, no strings, just love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that I can give you that link as well, but it's right there on the website.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll make sure that's in the show notes. And then for the person that has, like, you have had healing from SIBO, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm thinking about the people that are out there that maybe do feel hopeless, like, they've had no answers and they're really struggling. Are there things along the journey, I'm assuming, where there's maybe elimination? I hate to call them diets, but where you're eliminating food to see if that's something that's affecting them. I'm trying to think as they're walking through this healing journey and getting, how do you know when it's done? I mean, I get there won't be symptoms. Is that the main way that the symptoms are gone, they feel amazing? Um, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And in my practice, it's a little bit of a gray area because the typical algorithm, I'll call it, for going through a SIBO protocol is, you're on a restricted diet. So that often looks like a low FODMAP diet, for instance. There's a few of them out there. I have several diets kind of in my toolbox. I don't call them diets, I call them food guidelines because
I like
there's
that
no pass
better.
or fail. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
pass or fail or black and white. When it comes to food, everybody is different, right?
yeah.
But it's just kind of a guideline. So that's part of the picture for many practitioners. It's part of the picture for me as well. I like to choose based on who I'm looking at and talking to, which guideline I think is appropriate. Now, I never see that as a long-term end all be all, right? So the food guideline is for a temporary amount of time to reduce symptoms so that that person feels better sooner while we're getting ready to start a SIBO protocol. It's not the fix all, it's not the cure because maybe you're starving those bacteria because they're not eating those particular foods, but you're also starving yourself by being on those diets long term because you're not
Hmm.
getting the really key nutrients that you need, especially as aging women, um, graceful women that we are, dynamic women. We need all of those really great nutrients, including things from cruciferous vegetables. That's going to help us, you know, synthesize and detox from excess estrogen and all the downstream effects of that whole picture, right? So we don't want to be depriving ourselves of really key nutrients and being on restricted diets for a long time. And I will say, I think it was a year or two ago, I had a woman who came to me. She was an elderly woman who had been eating 4 foods for about a year by the time she came to see me because that's all she
Wow.
could tolerate. And she was
Mm,
extremely nutrient depleted. Yeah. And if you don't have nutrients and those building blocks, how are you, expecting your body to heal itself? You need
yeah.
to give it fuel, right? So diet is part of the picture. Um, Now I just lost my train of thought there. So you were asking me kind of what the process looks like?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, and
just
so
someone that's walking through it and
right.
what people can kind of expect when they go through this, even though understanding everyone's different.
Yeah, yeah. So lots of times it is kind of a temporary restriction of certain foods just to get a little bit of relief.
Hmm.
But then the goal is always going to be food freedom, right? And expanding your food variety. That's always going to be the goal, in my opinion. And so there's also a lot of things that I do in my practice that are missing in other approaches by other practitioners. Things like, well, you've had this ongoing infection. What about what's going on with your immune system? For some reason, your immune system's been tolerating this infection. So let's talk about that. Let's also talk about your stress level and your ability to manage it because we can't just avoid stress. That's just what life is these days, right?
Hmm.
But learning tools every day, that's a big conversation I have with my clients.
Yeah.
How can we incorporate more joy? How can you get back to that old hobby that you used to love doing? How can we incorporate some more movement in a gentle way for your body while you're in your healing bubble, right? I do a
Yeah.
lot of quotes in my in
Yeah.
my
I
in
do
my
too.
yeah. Um
Well, and
so things like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's the holistic approach. I mean, it's exactly what I speak to my clients too about, because it's not just about exercise or whatever. It's just the whole mindset, body, spirit,
Mhm.
everything hand in hand. And
Yeah.
it sounds like the same thing when you're treating someone also. Um,
Yeah.
well, let
Yeah.
me ask you, so is there anything that we haven't talked about, haven't covered, that you think is key takeaways, something that you really want people to know and understand? Because for me, I've already learned so much about it and I want to learn so much more. So if there's anything else we haven't discussed, I would love for you to share that.
Yeah, that's always the big question, right? At the end of a
Hmm.
chat like this, what's the big
Hmm.
takeaway? Gosh, there's so many, but I think I would
Well, and it can
say,
be a few. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
one.
I think for your audience, one of the big things would be, um, again, being your own advocate, right? Holding hope that there are answers for you, of creating your tribe, people who are going to help support you, right? Whether that's a doctor or a chiropractor or an acupuncturist or an alternative practitioner like myself and you. Um, Knowing that your body has the innate ability to heal itself, having real faith in that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we lose sight of that and we start deferring to whatever our doctor is telling us to do. Obviously, I'm not telling people to not follow their doctor's advice. I'm not saying that, right?
Yeah.
Disclaimer, disclaimer.
Uh-huh.
But I'm saying just, follow your intuition. I think when I get asked, sometimes, Jen, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently, right? Like if we could go back in time and be in our 20s
Hmm.
again, whatever. I would say listen to your intuition, listen to your body, get still and quiet. We don't have enough quiet time. We don't have enough time to stare at the ceiling or lay underneath the tree. We just don't allow ourselves to do that. But really shifting that perspective and understanding, actually, I need to be able to do that. And I'm going to make that a priority now, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Doing things that bring us joy. I feel like sometimes we just let that go by the wayside. whether it's because we feel like we don't have enough time or it's not the priority, but it's totally the priority.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's not
Um,
enough joy right now in the world, right? So
yeah,
we need
yeah.
that.
And so
Yeah.
I think in my practice, I see a range of people from like, mid 20s to like even on up to 80 something, right? Is what I have in my practice right now. And, I'm really telling those younger women and men to learn how to do these things as they're younger, right?
Hmm.
And then teaching the women that are more our age to understand that it's not too late. You can still make changes, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's still so much more life to live, right? And let's make the best of it.
Hmm.
Let's change our mindset. Let's be more positive. Let's express gratitude more often. Let's make ourselves a priority. This has been a shift that I've personally experienced in the last 4 or 5 years as I've, had some personal things happen in my life, really recognizing that, wow, I neglected myself for a long time. No wonder I was so sick.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, this weekend I have a daughter moving to college. Like my life is changing, right? Last night I
Hmm.
started my first singing lesson
Oh,
because
I
I
love
want to do
it.
something new, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Now, will your house be, will you be empty nester?
Well, I have another son, but he's in community college, so he'll be leaving next year to
Okay.
transfer to a university. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I can help you with all of that.
Okay, that would be great. Because
Yes.
I'm not, I'm gonna be an emotional basket case this weekend when I say goodbye
Yes.
to her.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw my story I put up yesterday, but it's a book for parents that
Oh,
their
good.
kids are leaving, because I have friends going through that, and it's one that you can read now or while they're in high school. It is what got me through. So
Yeah, very
just
good. I'll
a
check that
little
out.
side note. Yeah. So I can help you down that road when you're there, because it's hard, and it's just navigating this new norm. But I will say the beauty in it, and I love what you said toward the younger doing things now, and then speaking to the women more, my age. I don't know, I'm 59, and speaking more to women that just because I'm 59, I can still live out another good many years, and I want to live it out feeling good, and I want to feel healthy, and I want to try new things. And like you trying the singing, I try more things now than I ever did before. And I think a lot of that is just wanting to try new things, and I'm not afraid to fail. And I don't care if anyone
Yeah.
laughs at me.
Right,
You
right.
know?
I think
Uh,
that's the beauty that comes with age too, is that you just
mhm.
don't give a flying F anymore, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And when I do find myself comparing, I'm like, okay, I need to get over that and move on.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's obviously my motto with your age is not your cage. Age is just a number. And I believe that we have so much more life to live. And it's been my passion to help women know. There's so many women that I hear talking that are in their early 40s, and they feel awful and they're really struggling. And it's like, gosh, if you could learn now to listen to your body and learn all the things about it, how much better you will be when you get in your 50s and 60s and 70s. And
Oh,
um,
yes, definitely.
so, but okay. Before I digress into all kind of topics, because I definitely could. I'm going to ask you, because sometimes I forget to ask my guests, but because the show is called Your Age Is Not Your Cage, and you've already just now kind of answered it. The question is, what are you doing that is not letting your age hold you back? What are you doing in your life? And I would say the singing lesson might be one.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. So it's so interesting. People say, "Oh my gosh, are you having like a midlife crisis?" I actually think it's just like midlife blossoming or something.
It
I don't know what.
is. I like that.
Uh, yeah. So last week I turned 50, and for about a
Happy
year
birthday.
thank you. I was looking forward to it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait till I'm 50. This is gonna be awesome," right?
Yeah.
And then like a week before I turned 50, I was starting to feel a little sad about it. But the thing was is I had to realize and reframe it for myself that it isn't really the number, right? But I'm going to embrace this next year and really focus on anything that I'm doing that's transformational.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's starting this whole singing thing, right? Like I've been playing guitar for the last 4 or 5 years as well. It's a way for me to process stress and express, and I sing my poetry out and kind of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think too, just being an example to my own kids. They see me running my own business. They see me renovating my 2-story house because that's something I like to do. Just being an example of what's possible, anything is possible to my kids, I think is part of my transformation too,
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, as someone who's, the numbers are ticking and rolling along here. I think the other thing too is that I'm coming into really realizing that, like I've said through our whole chat here today, is that this is like our one life to live,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's no more squandering, there's no more regrets. There's only self-love and self-loyalty at this point. That's the only thing I'm available for. And
Mm-hmm.
really kind of reframing that for myself for the next year, of thinking about how and what can I do to make myself a better person? What's bringing me joy? What do I want to prioritize my time and energy on? Because I'm just not available for things that don't help me be a better person or feel good at this
Mm-hmm.
point, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think as we
And
get older, sometimes we feel more empowered to say things like that.
yeah, I was just going to say that. I think that's the beauty that comes with aging, is the confidence that comes with it. And I think I love what you're doing, and your kids are seeing that. And mine too see me, always doing something new, trying new things, starting a podcast last year in my
Yeah,
50s, and just the things that I'm doing. And I think if we as women will do this and come together, we help change the narrative around aging, and that, it's horrible and you feel awful, and, there's nothing left to do with our lives. It's not that. And I think it's just up to us to keep being an example to the generations behind us, and just show that, we could keep doing anything and believing in ourselves and having that mindset of doing it. And that, I mean, that's exactly
exactly.
what you're doing too. And so you're one of those out there, fighting to change that too. And I think it's so, so important.
Yeah,
So,
and I just want to give you a shout out too, Carla. I've listened to several of your podcasts and I just thought, oh my gosh, we need more of this. I'm so glad you were here and showing up and shining your light and really sharing this message. Honestly, it's, for folks our age, but also it's for everybody because it's so important to live our best lives.
mhm.
There's no other alternative. Like, why suffer when we don't have to, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And like,
yes, exactly. And
and
I love Kathleen because she's the one that introduced me to you, and
yes,
that's how
that was
I
great.
I came about in following you. And yeah, I'm just so excited that she made that introduction and we were able to do this.
Yes. Yeah, she's one of my good friends, and her book, I give it to my clients all the time
Yeah,
because it's called Start with One, and it's just so foundational, but transformational for
yeah,
sure.
it's
And
so
especially
good.
when we're feeling overwhelmed, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
good place to start. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And yes, mine was all kinds of notes and sticky notes. And I told her, I said, all the years that I've had it in my mind of maybe writing a book. I said, you wrote it. That's a lot of what I would say is what she has in her book. So I don't need to. I can just let other people
Yeah.
read hers.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, so what's the best places to connect with you? And I will also put those in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. So great question. Thank you for asking. The best way to find me is on my website. So it's www.thesibocoach.com. That's SIBO. And there you can find all my free resources. I have an upcoming webinar. You can register for it there. There's my contact information if you want to set up an appointment with me. All the things. I'm also on Instagram, although I will say that for the last several months, I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from social media, but you can see me over there on occasion. but the website is the best way.
Okay. Website, and you're on Facebook too, right? But
Yep,
just,
I'm on Facebook too.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So all the things.
All the things. I'm everywhere. It's basically the SIBO coach everywhere.
Okay. Oh, awesome. Well, and we'll also put in the links for the other things that we talked about. So I'll make sure I grab those from you. And
Yeah, that'd be great.
I enjoyed this so much, and it's really going to cause me to even look further into it and learn more, because I love learning all about gut health. And so you've been such a great resource, and I know our listeners gain so much from this. So thank you. And I hope my listeners too will reach out to you and seek you in getting some help if they're suffering from this too, or think they are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. It's been a wonderful experience chatting, getting to know you more. And again, like I said, I'm just love what you're doing here. And thank you so much for
Uh,
having me.
well,
Yeah.
and thank you too. Thank you for listening to the podcast and sending those encouraging words too. I appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that is all we have today for Your Age is Not Your Cage with Carla Allen. Remember, every Wednesday, I come out with a new episode. And don't forget to share this with your friends and your family because this is such great information to get out there. So share it and let others know about it. But until next week, I will see you later. Love y'all. Thank you. Bye-bye.